This video is for entertainment purposes only. As of February 15th, 2015, it is my personal opinion and is subject to change. It cannot and should not be taken as an official or unofficial stance of either myself or any other organization or individual. I am not officially or unofficially representing any individual or organization. Consult with a professional before making any kind of change to any kind of infrastructure. I do not accept any responsibility for any system or infrastructure or any other entity that may or may not be damaged at any time for any reason. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the Drupal install file, and I'm going to go through the code with you here. So the first thing it does is it updates and upgrades your system, which is fine. Then it installs a whole bunch of required software. I'm not going to go through all of these and what they do. Just for the moment, they are required. That's all you need to know. The next two lines, these two lines ensure that both MySQL and Apache are activated or essentially started on start, and then it goes ahead and starts it too. If you were to stop it here and you essentially go to the IP address or domain of the instance that you're running on, you should see the standard Apache config page. Here it just backs up the HTTP conf file. We're going to be automating an editor of it later on, so it's essentially good to have a backup. This edits a conf file, and all it's doing is it's essentially removing an allow override. This essentially allows it allows access to where it's required. I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of the HTTP conf file and how it all works, not due to lack of knowledge, but just because it's not pertinent. All you need to know here is it's just giving required access to what's needed. This final bit here, this echo out, what this says is, look, you're about to set up your database. Make sure you got your access ID and secret access ID key ready. You're with the database script that I went through beforehand. What you're looking at here is, you're going to be needing to execute the AWS command line tools, and for that you will need to set them up, and for that you will need access ID and secret access ID keys. Then it goes ahead and runs the database bash script, which we went through earlier. Finally, pair is already installed, but what we're going to be doing now is we're just going to be essentially updating its channels and upgrading it. Then we are going to install Drush. Drush is a command line tool for Drupal. You really do need this if you're going to be interacting with Drupal on any kind of programmatic scale. Finally, it runs your EBS script that we went through earlier. The idea here is that you can then mount the EBS volume to the HTML directory where your internet website effectively is. Anything that's in the HTML directory, generally speaking, is viewable from the web. And this essentially mounts the volume. The idea behind this is that you will actually mount the volume on the HTML directory, so you can move that across the different websites as and where you need it. Then it changes the ownership of the HTML directory. Now, I cannot strongly recommend enough that you change this. You actually go ahead before you run the script and you create a new user and you change it to your own username. That's basic security. EC2-user is the default security name. I put that in there just for ease of use. You really should change it before you run this script. In a later iteration, I will actually ask the user what username they want and then go ahead and create a user for them. But for the moment, just create one yourself and change it. Then it goes through to the HTML directory, upgrades Drush and downloads, I should say, Drupal, and then changes the ownership on Drupal to EC2. Again, it shouldn't be EC2, it should be whatever user you created. Then it logs in as EC2 user, i.e. the user itself, and then moves the contents of Drupal up a directory level. What this means is you can now access your Drupal website from directly going to the IP address or the domain name of your instance, as opposed to having to put a /Drupal on the end. Then it creates your default files directory and makes that fully executable. Again, you know what? You shouldn't have it like that. It's, you know, I found it slightly easier to run when I was writing the script. In a future iteration, this will be changed, but once the script is run, you should actually lock this down and shouldn't actually have it as these permissions. I recommend strongly that you go through the Drupal security settings. And I'll include a link to that, but there's this Drupal security page. Go there, read it, find out what are the latest Drupal security settings are, and follow them. Then it backs up the settings file, and it does this because the original settings file is already essentially backed up as a default.settings PHP. It says you can run one, but they have a default. We essentially just move the default over to settings.php. Then it changes the permissions on that, and at this point the script pauses. The idea here is that you actually navigate in your browser through to the through to your website and do the final steps on installing Drupal. And that is simply, you'll see this when I demonstrate it later on, that is you're simply just running through the standard Drupal installation. Finally, it changes the permissions on the settings.php to what it appropriately should be, then goes into the HTML file and downloads and installs some common extensions that I personally find useful in just about every time I create a Drupal website. The AWS SDK is always useful. It then sets up Bootstrap. That's just a common CS theme. It makes things slightly easier for you to edit. Share this. That essentially allows you to integrate social networking into your website, specifically the ability to share things on, or the ability for users to share things on Facebook, Google+, Twitter. You get the idea. All your major social things, it allows you to share them. LinkedIn is in there as well, actually. jQuery update, again, used by a lot of extensions. I just put it in there just because it's handy to have. And it then enables everything, and then the script finishes out. So that's it, really. It's a very, very simple script. You know, you should be changing your EC2 user before you run it, but pretty much that's the script there. It's very simple, very easy to do, and this saves you a lot of time. You should start to finish get your Drupal website set up in under 5 minutes.